What if I told you that one of the world's most powerful women doesn't rule through armies or oil, but through elegance, intellect, and empire building? This is the story of Sheikha Moza bint Nasser, the trillionaire queen who transformed Qatar's destiny with education, diplomacy, and incomparable luxury. Stay until the end, because we'll reveal the one hidden project that quietly redefined her as the most influential royal in the modern world. The rise of a queen with a purpose. In the 1960s, Qatar was nothing like the glittering skyline we know today. It was a small, windswept desert peninsula with fewer than 80,000 people, its economy surviving on pearl diving and trade caravans. Oil had just begun to trickle from the sand, and power belonged to tribal alliances rather than empires. Into this fragile world, Sheikha Moza bint Nasser was born in 1959, long before Qatar became one of the richest nations on earth. Her childhood wasn't gilded with privilege. Her father, Nasser bin Abdullah al-Missand, a reformist critic of the ruling regime, was forced into exile in Kuwait. Those early years of displacement taught her one lesson that would define her reign. Stability is never inherited, it must be built. When Sheikha Moza later met Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, the future emir of Qatar, it wasn't just a royal union, it was the beginning of a national transformation. Their marriage in 1977 symbolized more than love, it was the merging of intellect and ambition. While other royal families around the Gulf preferred quiet diplomacy, Moza envisioned a Qatar that could command global respect through education, innovation, and cultural sophistication. Her voice began to matter in private councils where policy, not jewelry, was discussed. By the late 1980s, she was already influencing decisions on social reform. Long before she held any formal title, observers noted how she blended modern thought with traditional values, often attending political discussions beside her husband, a rarity for women in the region at that time. When Hamad became emir in 1995, Sheikha Moza stepped fully into her role, not as a ceremonial figure, but as a co-architect of Qatar's new identity. Unlike many royals who relied on inherited fortunes, she started designing what would become a trillion-dollar national vision, brick by brick, school by school, institution by institution. The palaces she would one day own, from Doha's Al Wajba Palace, valued at nearly $300 million, to her London residence near Regent's Park, were not built just for grandeur, they were symbols of a country rising from the desert. Sheikha Moza's rise is not the story of a woman who inherited power, it's the story of one who earned it in a world built to silence her. And if you think her transformation ended with becoming Qatar's queen, think again, because what she did next would change how the entire Arab world defines leadership. What do you think? Can power built on education outlast power built on oil? Drop your thoughts below. From sociology to strategy, the academic foundation of power. When Sheikha Moza bint Nasser enrolled at Qatar University in the early 1980s, the country was still in its first phase of transformation. Oil had begun to fill state coffers, but intellectual capital remained scarce. Unlike most royal women who were expected to stay behind palace walls, she chose to study sociology, a decision that raised eyebrows even within her own circle. But Sheikha Moza wasn't looking for prestige. She was looking for a blueprint. Sociology gave her something no crown could, a map of how societies rise, fracture, and rebuild. Her time at the university was marked by discipline and determination. Professors recalled that she rarely missed a lecture, often engaging in debates about social mobility and gender equity, topics few dared to discuss publicly at the time. She analyzed not just Qatar's hierarchy, but the structure of Arab societies at large, how education, economy, and culture intertwine to sustain or suppress progress. Those theories would later shape her approach to nation building, where reform began not from politics, but from understanding people. Graduating with honors, she continued her academic journey abroad through specialized programs in development and leadership, expanding her network among scholars from London, Paris, and Geneva. Each experience added another layer of perspective: how Western economies invested in human capital, how Scandinavian countries built welfare systems that ensured dignity for every citizen, and how knowledge, when democratized, became the true engine of national resilience. By the time she returned to Doha, Sheikha Moza had developed a clear philosophy that wealth without intellect is temporary, but knowledge compounds forever. She began working closely with research committees and education ministries, pushing for curriculum reform and institutional transparency. These weren't symbolic gestures. She initiated studies on unemployment, social stratification, and youth engagement, issues that would later become key components of Qatar's long-term vision. At the same time, her personal investments reflected her intellectual ambition. She commissioned one of Qatar's most advanced private libraries, valued at over $12 million, filled with rare manuscripts on social theory, economics, and Islamic philosophy. Unlike typical royal collections of art or jewels, her treasures were ideas. This academic foundation became her silent weapon, a combination of intellect, strategy, and foresight. While others saw luxury as influence, Sheikha Moza understood that the true architecture of power begins in the classroom. Education as empire, founding the Qatar Foundation. In 1995, when most Gulf nations were racing to build taller towers and richer oil funds, Sheikha Moza bint Nasser launched something far more enduring: the Qatar Foundation for Education, Science and Community Development. What began as a modest initiative in the desert would soon evolve into a global powerhouse worth over $40 billion in assets, turning education into Qatar's most valuable export. Her mission was radical for its time: to transform a petroleum economy into a knowledge economy. At the heart of this vision rose Education City, a 12-square-kilometer academic enclave on the outskirts of Doha that now houses satellite campuses of Georgetown University, Carnegie Mellon, Northwestern, and Texas A&M. Each institution was hand-picked to fill a national gap: business, engineering, medicine, and journalism, forming an ecosystem designed to cultivate a generation of leaders fluent in both Arabic tradition and Western innovation. Every university building, crafted from desert limestone and glass, symbolized a new layer of national identity, one built on intellect, not extraction. Unlike most royals who lend their names to charities and vanish behind ceremonies, Sheikha Moza took a hands-on role. She personally reviewed research proposals, attended faculty sessions, and directed funding toward fields that could sustain Qatar beyond oil, from biomedical sciences to artificial intelligence. Her approach blurred the line between philanthropy and governance. Each project became both a social investment and a strategic instrument of power. By 2006, Education City had attracted more than 10,000 international students and generated partnerships worth hundreds of millions of dollars with Fortune 500 companies, positioning Qatar as a rising hub of innovation in the Middle East. Within the complex stands the Qatar National Library, home to more than 1 million volumes, including rare Islamic manuscripts and digitized archives from across the Arab world, a project valued at over $400 million. For Sheikha Moza, it wasn't just a library, it was a cultural declaration that knowledge, once imported, would now be produced and exported from Doha. Through the Qatar Foundation, she built not just schools, but an ideology, one where learning fuels sovereignty. And as other nations counted barrels, Sheikha Moza counted graduates, quietly proving that in the 21st century, education can yield returns far greater than oil. Power draped in silk, the politics of luxury. Every monarch has a throne, but Sheikha Moza bint Nasser built hers from silk, gemstones, and strategy. Her image, impeccably composed, never accidental, became one of Qatar's most effective instruments of diplomacy. Each public appearance functions like statecraft in couture form. At international summits, she wears Valentino, Dior, or Jean-Paul Gaultier, each design modified to preserve Qatari modesty while commanding global attention. Her fashion budget, estimated at over $5 million annually, isn't indulgence, it's influence. The world's media may see glamour, but political observers recognize precision. Every color, fabric, and silhouette chosen to project intellect, heritage, and control. The collection of jewelry is among the most valuable owned by any royal woman in the Middle East. Experts have estimated its worth to exceed $150 million, featuring bespoke pieces from Cartier, Van Cleef & Arpels, and Moussaieff, along with designs commissioned from private Parisian ateliers. She favors rare cashmere sapphires and natural pink diamonds set into necklaces that can weigh over 200 carats. But what makes her collection distinctive isn't its extravagance. it's its narrative. Each gem tells a story. Diplomatic gifts from state visits, commemorations of national milestones, or tributes to Arab craftsmanship. Her jewels are more than ornaments, they are artifacts of political history. Her residences mirror this philosophy of soft power through design. The Al Wajba Palace in Doha, valued at nearly $300 million, blends Islamic architecture with modern engineering, featuring domed halls wrapped in Italian marble and crystal chandeliers imported from Venice. In London, her Regent's Park mansion, worth an estimated $120 million, serves as a private embassy for Qatari elegance, hosting closed-door gatherings with heads of state and global CEOs. And in Paris, her property along Avenue Montaigne, close to the headquarters of Dior, operates as both residence and cultural statement. A royal home surrounded by the epicenter of haute couture. Yet what truly sets Sheikha Moza apart is how she wields opulence as language. Her clothing, jewels, and architecture communicate without words, asserting that Qatar's rise isn't just economic, but aesthetic and intellectual. In a world where power is often loud, hers whispers through refinement. Each step she takes on a red carpet is not vanity, it's diplomacy stitched in silk and diamonds, reimagining women's role in the Gulf. In a region where tradition often defined a woman's boundaries, Sheikha Moza bint Nasser chose to redraw them entirely. Her belief was simple yet revolutionary. Real empowerment begins not in politics, but in education and health. To her, progress wasn't about slogans, it was about infrastructure, access, and dignity. That conviction gave birth to one of the Middle East's most advanced medical and research institutions, Sidra Medicine. Opened in 2018 at a reported cost of $1.2 billion, Sidra stands as a glass and steel monument to modern womanhood. The facility, designed by the world-renowned firm Pelly Clark & Partners, features over 400 patient beds, cutting-edge robotic surgery units, and one of the most advanced neonatal intensive care centers in the region. Yet behind the architecture lies a philosophy that women deserve healthcare defined by precision, privacy, and respect. Every detail, from the patient suites lined with natural light to the medical research labs focused on maternal genetics, was conceived under Sheikha Moza's supervision. It's more than a hospital. It's a declaration that progress must be built, not declared. Through Sidra, she introduced opportunities few Gulf women had ever imagined. Over 60% of its workforce are women, from surgeons to administrators, and many are Qatari nationals who trained abroad through scholarships she personally championed. This institution became the nucleus of a broader transformation, connecting healthcare with research, education, and technology, fields once dominated by men. Its partnerships with Harvard Medical School and Weill Cornell Medicine anchored Qatar's entry into the global medical community, transforming Doha from a desert capital into a hub of innovation and care. But her ambitions reached further than medicine. Through programs under the Qatar Foundation, she developed leadership initiatives for young women in science and entrepreneurship, funding startups led by female founders and sponsoring research fellowships abroad. These efforts created a pipeline of talent, scientists, doctors, and engineers who now shape the country's workforce. Even in her public appearances, Sheikha Moza embodied the message she built into policy: confidence without confrontation. Her presence became proof that modernity and modesty can coexist. And within the corridors of Sidra, every patient treated, every discovery made, stands as a testament to her vision. That empowering women isn't just moral progress, it's national strategy. The global voice, from Doha to the United Nations. While many royals attend global summits for ceremony, Sheikha Moza bint Nasser attends them for strategy. Her voice, calm yet commanding, has echoed through the halls of the United Nations, UNESCO, and the World Economic Forum, where she is regarded not as a figurehead, but as a policymaker in couture. She isn't there to adorn a stage, she's there to influence it. Through her leadership of the Education Above All Foundation and the Protecting Education in Insecurity and Conflict (PEIC) initiative, Sheikha Moza has redefined how the world views humanitarian diplomacy, turning Qatar into one of the most active advocates for education in war-torn regions. Founded in 2012, Education Above All has funded programs in over 90 countries, supporting more than 15 million children who lost access to schooling due to conflict or poverty. Its annual operating budget, estimated at over $300 million, rivals that of small nations' education ministries. Many languages, including Hebrews, French, German, as well as some Eastern republics, allow time for members to reflect. But Sheikha Moza's approach differs from typical philanthropy. Her programs are designed like national systems, complete with digital monitoring, teacher training, and local economic incentives to ensure sustainability. When she visits refugee camps in Lebanon or Jordan, cameras capture more than charity, they capture policy in motion. At UNESCO headquarters in Paris, where she served as a special envoy for basic and higher education, Sheikha Moza has used her platform to argue that education is not a privilege, but a safeguard of peace. Her speeches, delivered in English and Arabic, combine academic precision with diplomatic gravity, quoting data from UNICEF and the World Bank with the fluency of a stateswoman. In 2019, she spearheaded the Education Cannot Wait Global Fund, which mobilized $1.5 billion to rebuild schools destroyed in conflict zones from Yemen to Sudan. These efforts also transformed Qatar's diplomatic identity. Under her guidance, Doha shifted from being perceived as an energy exporter to a humanitarian hub, hosting international conferences on development and peace building. Even her Geneva residence, valued at approximately $85 million, functions as a working base for meetings with UN officials and foundation partners, an elegant intersection of luxury and leadership. While other monarchs deliver speeches written by advisors, Sheikha Moza crafts her own message, one that fuses intellect, empathy, and power. And with every initiative she launches, the world is reminded that her influence is not ceremonial, it's systemic, reshaping how nations define moral authority. Qatar National Vision 2030, building a nation beyond oil. By the late 2000s, as oil profits continued to surge across the Gulf, Sheikha Moza bint Nasser began to articulate a new kind of ambition, one that couldn't be measured in barrels or bank reserves. Alongside the Emir, she became a key architect of Qatar National Vision 2030, a sweeping plan valued at over $200 billion that sought to transform Qatar from a hydrocarbon economy into a nation powered by knowledge, sustainability, and innovation. It wasn't a slogan, it was a strategy for survival in a world where oil wealth alone could no longer guarantee relevance. The vision was structured around 4 pillars: human development, social progress, economic diversification, and environmental balance. Each pillar bore Sheikha Moza's influence, from the emphasis on education and healthcare to cultural diplomacy and green infrastructure. Through initiatives under the Qatar Foundation and the Qatar Science and Technology Park, she encouraged research into renewable energy, biotechnology, and digital systems, turning academic ambition into national policy. By 2023, Qatar had invested over $45 billion in sustainability projects, including solar farms in Al-Qasr and a zero-emission transportation network around Doha. Culturally, she oversaw the expansion of Qatar museums, commissioning projects that redefined how the Arab world presented its heritage. The National Museum of Qatar, designed by architects Jean Nouvel and valued at $434 million, became the crown jewel of this vision, its desert rose-inspired architecture symbolizing rebirth from tradition. Under her direction, art and education were woven into the same narrative, one preserving identity while propelling modernization. Her influence extended into policy design. She advocated for female participation in leadership roles and sustainable urban planning that aligned with global climate goals. Even housing developments like Mesheab downtown Doha, a smart city project worth $5.5 billion, reflected her belief that innovation and cultural authenticity could coexist. Through Vision 2030, Sheikha Moza reframed Qatar's destiny, from a nation living off its resources to one investing in its people. She understood that oil could build wealth, but only intellect could build permanence. And in doing so, she positioned Qatar not just as an energy leader, but as the Arab world's blueprint for enlightened power. The legacy of a modern monarch. From the exile of her childhood to the marble corridors of power, Sheikha Moza bint Nasser has become the rare monarch who turned influence into infrastructure and wealth into wisdom. Her legacy reaches far beyond the palaces of Doha. It lives in the classrooms of Education City, in the research labs of Sidra Medicine, and in the diplomatic halls where Qatar now speaks with a voice of authority. Under her guidance, a nation once reliant on oil became an empire of intellect. Sheikha Moza's impact is visible in every sphere of Qatari life. The education initiatives she founded have produced over 60,000 graduates across international universities, many now leading government institutions and global companies. Her healthcare investments reshaped the nation's medical system, while her support for Qatar museums built a cultural industry valued at over $2 billion. Making Doha one of the Arab world's most dynamic art capitals. Even her advocacy for women's participation in leadership has reshaped the workforce. By 2024, Qatari women accounted for nearly 40% of managerial positions, a figure unimaginable just 2 decades ago. Her philanthropic reach extends well beyond Qatar's borders. Through the Education Above All Foundation, her programs now operate across 90 nations, from Asia to Sub-Saharan Africa, ensuring that millions of children affected by war or poverty can return to school. Each initiative bears her unmistakable signature: discipline, elegance, and purpose. But perhaps her greatest achievement is more intangible: the transformation of Qatar's identity. She made intellect fashionable, leadership feminine, and progress inevitable. Sheikha Moza proved that royalty doesn't have to rule from the shadows of tradition, it can lead from the front lines of reform. Today, her life stands as both a blueprint and a challenge for modern leadership. She didn't inherit her influence, she engineered it. And as the world watches Qatar step confidently into its future, one question remains: how many nations can claim their destiny was reshaped by a single woman's vision? What do you think? Can elegance and intellect truly redefine power in the modern world? Leave your thoughts below. From palaces of marble to universities rising from the desert, Sheikha Moza's legacy proves that real power is measured not in wealth but in how it reshapes nations. Her life blends vision, refinement, and reform in ways few monarchs have ever achieved. If this glimpse inside the trillionaire life of Qatar's richest queen inspired you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share to support our channel Billionaire Story. And stay tuned, because in part 2 we'll uncover how her influence now extends far beyond Qatar, shaping education and diplomacy across the entire Middle East.